first and get started. So we all made it through on our Microsoft Teams meeting, which is good. I do want to at least get formally started here with our roll. So we got John DeWolf.
Here.
Hi, John. Richard Swezak.
Here.
Rob Lewandowski is out, but he sent over his reviews. I am here, DeAndrea. Bob Doan, I see. Good morning. The ever-present Al Regina.
Good morning.
Ken, there you
Here.
are. Good morning.
Yep.
Bob Don. Where's Bob? Not yet. And then we have our new member, Ryan Thompson. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. I'm here.
And I told Ryan yesterday in a quick email that we expected him to give us a little background so we can welcome him aboard. Kurt Smith, being, as I said, ever the gentleman, agreed to send over whatever he has in his packet to Ryan and kind of fill him in on how the process for the review of the land surveying applicants has been proceeding over the years. So what did you do wrong to get yourself appointed to this board?
Oh, I asked to be a part of it. So I just a little bit about myself. So I'm actually licensed as both an engineer and a surveyor. Obviously, I'm on the board as a surveyor member, but I've been doing surveying. I started during summers during college, and in the mid '90s. So I've surveyed, many years. And when I first started as a degreed working towards licensure engineer, I would go work for a company, and they said, "Well, you can do surveying, so here you go out to the field, and then come back and do the work in the office." So that's kind of how I got into surveying, and through the years I continued it. I wanted to seek the surveying license, so a few years back I became licensed here in Connecticut, and then as a surveyor, and I've been licensed as an engineer in multiple states for many years, and then also recently got licensed in Maryland as a surveyor there as well. So, but I started out in engineering and surveying in Virginia. That was where I got undergrad was Virginia Military Institute in civil engineering, and then graduate school at Virginia Tech with civil engineering transportation specifically. And I worked for the Virginia DOT for a number of years, kind of in the middle of working for land development companies. Now I own my own company. I'm a small operation. I'm based out of Clinton, but I do work along the shoreline, primarily focused on residential land development, some subdivisions, a little bit of commercial. I'm starting to get into that. And simple engineering. I don't like to do anything extremely complicated. I do some stormwater management, on the residential, mainly residential types, some septic design, stuff of that nature. So that's my background. But how I became a part of the board was, I've always believed in contributing however I can. I was a reservist for 20-something years, retired as a lieutenant colonel, commanded a battalion, commanded a company in Iraq years ago. And now that I have a little bit more free time, decided to punish myself by giving myself more work. So here I am.
Good. Welcome. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your future service.
Thank you.
Ryan. And your license is a PE in Connecticut, Ryan?
Yes, I am licensed as a PE and an LS in Connecticut, correct. And a PE I'm sorry?
It should be reflected on our board members then that you have both licenses.
So I do believe on the website it shows it that way. I looked at it briefly. I didn't necessarily pay very, very close attention, but I think it said that. I don't think it says that on the minutes or the agenda here, but.
Well, for
so
the
then
format
you can vote on PE. Can you vote on the question is, should Ryan be voting on the PE applications as well as the land surveyor applications?
Well, it's up to Ryan because there'll be a double load, but I think technically we need him on the LS side. That's the first step, right?
I agree with that.
There's
I
nothing,
understand that, but
there should be nothing to prevent him from participating in the engineering degree applications. I would not think. Valuable experiences. We've always said that if you know something, you should be willing to contribute. So it's an interesting.
so as an,
Are we talking about voting or are we talking about reviewing?
yes,
Oh,
voting, because I can't vote on land surveyors because I don't have a land surveyor license. But it sounds like Ryan can vote in both
Yeah.
PE and LS.
I may be wrong, and I certainly hope that those of you who have been a member of the board, can help correct me. But I believe that I'm really only a part of this board as a land surveyor, and I don't know what the law, the bylaws and everything, specifically state about that. But I think that in my understanding, it's broken down, the PE members and the PELS members who are specifically assigned as PELS members vote for the PE things, in addition to the public members, and then the LS and PELS and public members vote on the LS things. But I might be wrong. I may be incorrect there, but that's how I understood it. So it'd be nice if we could get some clarification.
Right.
Do we have one of the attorneys on board here today or not?
I don't see one.
Yes, sir. Ryan Burns here.
Hi, Ryan. Welcome. The question is, for example, Bob Dona and I are both PELS, and over the years, we've basically refrained from overlapping into the land surveying for no other reason than we had 3 very qualified surveyors who reviewed everything, and there was a matter of consistency, in my opinion, in the review process. But when necessary, we would participate in the review, which I believe, we're entitled and obligated to do. So if there's a clarification that needs to be had, Ryan Burns, we would hope that you would, give us a little insight on that. In other words, certainly Ryan Thompson has a tremendous wealth of experience that we would and should rely on, and anything that he can provide on insight based on his experience and knowledge would be appreciated. But then it's a matter of whether or not you want to participate in both sides, Ryan Thompson. So,
Okay. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I will have to do some research and get back to you.
yes.
But the question, just make sure I understand the question. The full board of professional engineers and land surveyors divides its work into issues concerning engineers and issues concerning land surveyors. And it has been your understanding that only engineers have voted on engineering issue and only land surveyors have been voting on land surveyor issues. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
With the exception of the public member being me.
Correct. So in that situation, if there's someone that's been appointed to a land surveying position, but they have a professional engineering license, should or can they participate in the engineering issues? Is that the question?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Let me do some research on that and get back to you.
And Ryan Burns,
Both in the stake of review and voting.
yes,
Two
the
segments.
review, certainly Ryan Thompson's input on the engineering aspects with his experience and knowledge I would think is very important. But Ryan Burns, just keep in mind that Bob Dona and I are voting members on surveying issues. So is there really a difference? Other than the technical aspect of it, you're aligned on one side as a surveyor. That's just the way the board was required to be made up by the
Right.
statute.
Yes, I have not reviewed this aspect
I know,
of
I
that
understand.
statute, and PELS is unique in the way that it's structured. So I will have to dig into this issue further, but I think I understand the issue.
Right. We appreciate that.
And just to go ahead and throw this out there, I have no problem participating in the engineering if it's authorized. So,
Right.
and needed.
And the way we've done
Neither
that,
do I. That's why I brought it up. I think
Right.
you should be able to participate.
very good question, and I think we'll get to the bottom. Ryan, with the way it's been in the past, is we've had, truthfully, very few land surveying items. So that the surveyors as a group all got the same applications. They all reviewed it, they commiserated and came to a consensus. Typically, I was not involved, nor was Bob Doan in those deliberations, so that the three LS members did the detailed, work on those. So keeping that in mind, we wouldn't mind having your input on the engineering as long as Ryan Burns comes back and says we're not prohibited from doing that, right? I know that in the past, when we had opportunities to have retired engineers as a public member, it was infrequent, but a couple of times that came up. There was somewhat of a reluctance to have that overlap or overload on the public member side, because while we can't seem to find any more public members, the idea of the public member is to keep everybody balanced, right? And Al does a great job on that. But the input of everybody with their knowledge and experience, I think, is important for us to take advantage of. And that puts you into the opportunity to help us with reviewing of applications.
Yep.
For example, today we have a couple that Rob Lewandowski wanted a little bit more support on, or at least some more input. And when those items come up, given the opportunity that we have advance notice of it, we can all review it individually and then come to a consensus. So I don't think we're going to necessarily get to answer Rob's concerns today, because physically I haven't been able to see them, nor has John DeWolf. So at worst, we'd have to table it, but we may have to do that. All right.
Tony, this is Jane. I did email them both to both you and John
I know. So I have to
just a little while
go
ago.
to another room now and print them out and find them, and then we can perhaps do that toward the end. But right now, I haven't had a chance to review those. And again, Rob was only concerned about experience. So I don't know if John has a little bit more time right now to just take a quick look at those, if he has those. And
I just checked my inbox and I have them now.
okay. So John, the question was whether or not in Rob's assessment, while he thinks that the degrees are equivalent, he was a little concerned about the experience for Sadala Galab. He says Sadala Galab was deemed equivalent, but he thinks his experience deserves a little review and discussion.
Okay, I'm going to be frank about that. I really want some more time. I don't want to
Right.
race it through.
No, I don't either. So
I think
I think we're just
I think
going
we
to
should
table
table
those two. When we get to them, I'm going to ask for a consensus on tabling, because we have to give them a
Right.
fair look. And it doesn't make sense to rush through them.
Mr.
Especially
Chairman,
when
we
If it's a
would
normal
now,
class 4, then it's not a problem to do it quickly, but those need some time.
Right. Okay. So
Mr.
having,
Chairman, would now be an appropriate time to swear in the new member?
I was going to say, now that we've heard from Ryan and we like him, we're going to let him get sworn in now. Right?
All right. Mr. Thompson, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that you will faithfully discharge according to the law your duties as commissioner to the best of your abilities, so help you God, or on penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ryan.
Welcome.
So we're going to have Ryan B and Ryan T for the near future.
Yes,
So-
sir.
Now that we've had our new member sworn in, last week I was invited to meet with the new commissioner of DCP, Brian Zaffaretti, I believe, if I recall correctly. I should have written it down on my agenda, but anyway, Brian was meeting with the chairman of all the boards. We were both surprised to realize how many licensing boards there are. And I've always been amazed that, in fact, there is one for windshields on vehicles, but we had a nice conversation and I told him about our new appointee for the board and our lack of ability to fill it completely with public members. We didn't really have any other problems to express. I told him we have very few complaints. The only complaint we have is that over the years, we were never able to modify our statutes to affect the basics, which is to get the requirements of the model law included in our statute. He understood the issue, thought, as all the commissioners do, he thought that perhaps now is the time he could find a way to get that done. I said, well, he took copious notes on that aspect, and we'll see if anything productive comes out of that. But it was a good meeting, short, but with just a few questions, and I gave him the overall impression of what we do and how we do it, and what we've been trying to do over the years, which is to be consistent and follow the model law, as I think uniquely in our zone, our Northeast zone, but we will see. Anyway, that was the only new business I have to offer. So with that said, we could move into our regular agenda. Jane, before I do that, again, I may have missed it because I tried, but I don't know if we got minutes from last meeting.
I think the way he does it, or they attach it right to the meeting notice to where all the documents are, and then you have to go there to get it. In the future, would you like me to email that to you ahead of time?
Yeah, you know what's happening? It seems that we're getting stuff from different sources at different times, and quite honestly, it may just get lost in the shuffle. But if we can have the agenda, then we're on. If the agenda comes with the packet, and there may be more work for you, but when I review the applications, I like to go down the agenda, move with my applications, make my notes, and continue along. So I like to have the agenda with the packet. And you have that as a separate sheet, which is helpful, but if we can get all that at once.
My concern is he sends them so far in advance.
Yeah.
He basically has stringed the meetings out for the rest of the year with invitations. I'm a retired, so I don't get as much emails as Tony would get in his. They're going to get lost in the shuffle. If we get them 3 or 4 days in advance, then it's current for us.
Right. I agree with that, Al. That's what I think I was trying to say. So, I, for one, have not reviewed the minutes from last month. I just didn't see them and didn't get them, and
I haven't
I'll
either.
catch up. So that's one issue. Other than that, I think we're moving okay. I think we're also just seeing it a different format than we had been getting, and now we're all getting used to it, and it's coming along.
Tony, do you need a motion to just table the review of the minutes until next meeting?
For me, I would appreciate it. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to review them.
I haven't reviewed them.
If that's the case, then I would.
I haven't. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I'll make that motion then.
All right. So it's been moved to table the review of the minutes from March. Is there a second to that?
Second.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
John.
Sorry, I missed
All
that.
those-
Who made the motion?
Bob Doan.
Bob did. Bob Down did.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to table the review of the minutes from our March meeting until our next meeting. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just,
Hearing none, that motion
just as a note, the latest email that came through, there was 3 strings of attachments to it. and one of those strings contained the minutes. So you got to click on all three of those to find the documents.
Okay. So, well, Jane, who, or for the time being, who is it that distributes it? In other words, do you send everything out, or does it go through whoever else it was that sent the invitation? In other words, if any of the documents for us to review come through with the invitation for the meeting, that's okay, I guess, if we know that's going to be the process. But if we just get the invitation for the meeting separate without documents, and the documents come from you, at least we know where to look. Or at least I would.
So,
Yes,
Jason, you want to handle that?
yeah, the invitation, the meeting invitation, you're gonna get well in advance. You should have already gotten the invitations for the meetings for the rest of the year. But a week before the meeting approximately, you should get an email with a link to an online folder with all the documents.
And that would come from you.
Well, it should come from the board administrator address. I try and send it from that so that everything will come from the same place.
Okay, but there was 3 different strings that you had to click on. When you click
That was
on,
correct.
you had to open every one of them to find the documents behind them.
I'm not
Correct.
sure what you're referring to, but there should only be, you know.
Okay.
In,
one that-
in the email that was received by me 7 days ago, it says final meeting documents can be found at a link, and you click on that link, and there's, well, in this case, 4 different links in that link that you have to open up, and each one of those is basically the document. I think that's what Al is referring to.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. I guess we'll follow that procedure as best we can. If it gets more cumbersome, we'll certainly figure it out in another couple of days, couple of meetings. All right. Any other suggestions on that, on how to receive it? All right, let's move on to the regular agenda then. We
Mr.
had
Chairman?
one, yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. I have to jump off for another obligation, but if there's an issue that comes up that requires legal, just have someone from DCP reach out and I'll hop back onto the meeting.
okay. I think we're good. If you do the research for us on getting Ryan Thompson more involved in the engineering also, that would be good. And
Absolutely, sir.
okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with a little bit out of our normal order, but
Want to start with surveying business, Tony?
what was that now?
Do you want to start with surveying business since we don't have any?
You want to go back to work. So
Yes.
since we have no further surveying business. Again, Ryan, in the past, what we've done, as I tried to say in the email yesterday, was if we have surveying issues, we usually take them first. Ken's got a lot of work to do today, so there are no other items. So therefore, usually at this point say surveyors go back to work. And thank you for attending and introducing and meeting Ryan. And Ryan, at this point, you're free to go also, but if you want to watch our process and see if you can offer some suggestions on improving it, we're more than happy to hear it. Other than that, thank you, Ken. We'll see you in the next meeting.
You're welcome. See you
Have a
next.
good week.
Thank you. So I will stay in watch, but I'm just going to probably put myself on mute, and I'll participate if it comes up.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so going into we'll just go through our regular agenda. We're on page 2. We've certainly introduced and had swearing in for Ryan, and thank you for that introduction. the minutes, we've already made a motion to defer on our March 7th minutes until next month, when we will review those along with the minutes from this meeting. And now we know where to look for them and we'll be prepared. Speaking for myself especially. Then the next item on the agenda was a reconsideration to approve Class 4 license for Dane McGrady. And John DeWolf reviewed that application.
Okay, the reason we're re-reviewing this is I reviewed it for the last meeting, and he has an undergraduate physics degree and a master's in electrical engineering. And the recommendation at the last meeting was that we have his transcripts evaluated by NCEES to see if he meets the requirements. NCEES has evaluated them, and what he has is equivalent to an undergraduate degree. So therefore, I move approval of McGrady for Class 4 license.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Robert. So Ryan, if you're listening, the issue there was sometimes the education that comes across is unclear. And when we have a situation like this, when an individual has a non-ABET accredited undergraduate degree and then comes in and takes a master's program, we believe that that's not consistent with the model law, which requires the education, the examination, and experience. So what we have the ability to do is have the national NCEES evaluate the education, which is part of a service that they provide. So in this case, we asked the applicant to pursue that avenue. It was found to be equivalent by taking more courses in the master's program that cover the undergraduate voids. So it's been moved and seconded to approve Class 4 reciprocity for Dane McGrady. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you, John. Then on item D of our regular agenda, we had a list of the applicants who had passed the computer-based testing exams between February and March. Majority civil, a couple of electrical, and one mechanical. So those are for our reference, the fact that they have passed. And then our next applicants are Class 1 credit part 1. I reviewed the first applicant, which is sitting right in front of me. And this was what Robert Russell Baylor. He has a degree from Connecticut State University, Central Connecticut, bachelor in civil engineering. He's a structural engineer working as on a consultant firm for the DOT. So I am recommending approval. So is there a motion to accept my recommendation for Robert Baylor for Class 1 credit part 1?
So moved.
So
Thank you,
moved.
Robert. Thank you, John. In that case, Ryan, when I review them as the chairman, I just ask for someone to support my recommendation rather than making the motion, because we individually review the applications and we have a consensus. So it's been moved and seconded to approve Robert Baylor for Class 1 credit part 1. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, that motion carries. And, Rob Lewandowski has reviewed the applicants for Class 1 credit part 1. First applicant was Alexandra, and the next one was Timothy Griffin, I guess it is. Anyway, his recommendation is to approve both. One was a BS from UConn, one was a BS from New Haven. He recommends that both. Each of them has extensive experience beyond the degree, and both of them have the EIT. So is there a motion to accept Rob's recommendation for Hurry and Griffin for Class 1 credit part 1?
So moved.
Thank you, Robert.
I'll second it.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Richard reviewed two applicants for Class 1 Credit Part 1, Kadka and Malcolm.
Okay, Kaka has a degree from India that has not been evaluated. She does have a master's from UConn, but I think that we need to get her degree from India evaluated.
Agreed.
So
And
I'll make a
again, yeah.
motion that we, recommend that, she get an evaluation from NCSS for her degree from India.
Where's it from?
It's Niki Minaski Institute of Technology.
Where?
It's from India.
Oh, India. Okay. It sounded like you were saying Fiji, and we never heard that one. Okay.
No,
So the recommendation is to request, consistent with our policy, to evaluate the foreign degree.
correct.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you,
Second.
Rob. All those in favor of the motion to request evaluation of the undergraduate foreign degree for Kadka, Unica Kadka. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carried. Again, Ryan, whenever we have a foreign degree, for a long time, we were accepting the fact, or a few years, let's put it that way. For a few years, we were accepting the fact that a master's degree in the U.S. would qualify the undergraduate degree. But then when we had the advantage of having NCSS evaluate those degrees, we require it now. So it's consistent. It's a consistent policy that we have applied to all applicants. And that way, which I was mentioning to the commissioner, as long as we've been consistent on the basis of the advice from our counsel at the time, and we've been doing it for more than 20 years, we're consistently requiring the same review for all applicants. So in this case, foreign degree was not evaluated, needs to be evaluated. The applicant applies for it, pays for it, and then we rely on it. So I think we've covered that one. The next one, Richard, was Amelie Malcolm.
She also has a foreign degree from, I guess, a number of different countries in Africa. And they were evaluated, and she does have an equivalent environmental engineering degree. And she does have a master's and a PhD from the Catholic University of America in the United States. So I would make a motion that we accept her application.
Second.
Thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Amelie Malcolm for Class 1 Credit Part 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Bob Doan reviewed Sylvia Tansky for Class 1 Credit Part 1.
Okay. It's Sylvia with a W, Tansky.
I know I
from-
cheated on that one, but I was taking a
Yeah,
chance.
you did. But she has sent a letter asking us to consider 1.6 years of experience that she had with Fuss and O'Neill prior to her graduation. And I'm inclined to go along with that and let her take the exam, but I'll open it up for discussion. She has 3.1 years of experience after her degree and 1.6 years before her degree. We could wait another, essentially a year if we want, or let her take the exam. Her previous education were from Poland, and she had a Bachelor of Science in Spatial Planning. And she got a Master's of Science in Spatial Planning before that. And Land and Property Development were the pre-Central Connecticut degrees. And she got a degree from Central Connecticut in civil engineering.
So she has a BS, ultimately she has a BS in civil.
Yes, yep.
So the issue, as I see it, is the individual, because of computer-based, can take the exam, and the national is actually supporting that. You know, take it anytime you want.
Yep.
If you remember the time that the individual sat in the corner of the room and was, you know, threatening us, say, okay, you can take the exam, that's fine. But if you come to be licensed in Connecticut, you won't be licensed until you've had the 4 years experience. So while many applicants are taking the exam whenever they feel like it for that, you know, what's our position? You're going to say you can't take it? They'll go somewhere else and take it, and then come to us and say they want to be licensed in Connecticut. So personally, I would say if you take it and pass it, you just hold it until you have your experience, you know, to qualify that aspect. If you've got the degree and you ultimately get the experience and you pass the exam, I would say it's appropriate or acceptable.
Okay, and I think I should
We
qualify
have
that
not-
and say that you can go ahead and take your exam, but we will not license you until you have 0.9 years more
Right.
experience.
Right.
Okay,
We have
Do we-
been consistent at that. We have been consistent in requiring that the experience be after the degree.
Correct.
And the only degree in engineering is this central
Connecticut,
degree, is that correct?
yes,
Okay, so I don't think we should bend the rules.
okay. All right, we can,
If an earlier degree were in engineering, I might be willing to look at it, but I don't think we should. We have been consistent in requiring 4 years experience following the degree.
okay,
To be licensed, yes, to be
to be
licensed.
licensed.
To be licensed.
But the question is whether or not you can approve her to take the exam with the understanding that you won't be licensed. In other words, she can take the exam and know in two days or 2 weeks or whatever it is that she passed the exam, and she'll say, we want credit for the 1.6 years at Fuss and O'Neill. We say, no, you don't get credit for that to be licensed. The fact that you passed the exam is not the controlling factor. You have to have all three: education, experience, and
Right.
exam.
And I think we should, before we approve the license in Connecticut, we should wait until the person has the full experience.
We agree.
I don't care when they take the exam. If they want to take it early and the national board lets them do it, that's okay with me. But I don't think we should be considering this for license until.
We're not. This is an application to take the exam. But as Bob points
Once
out,
they take if we approve it today, once they take the exam, they have the license. I think they need to come
No.
back at
No.
the time they have the experience.
they don't get the license. All they're doing is passing the exam, but they're not meeting the qualifications in Connecticut to have had the experience following the exam, following the education.
Okay, here. Just tell the person to go take the exam. They don't need our approval. If they don't need our approval, we shouldn't be considering this. What we're looking at is the person qualified to be licensed? And I don't think we should be approving whether they take the
Okay.
exam or not. I think that's.
All right, well,
out of line.
that's fine. We can make that clear then.
I'll I'll
If I
rephrase.
can, if I
Oh,
can
go
put my
ahead.
2 cents in
Mhm.
from So what happens when, for the, to take the exam, I have to approve them to take the exam. So they go to, like, once they're approved here, like, with their 4 years, they're sent a letter saying, okay, now you can go register at NCEES to take the exam. So then once they register with them, then I get something from NCES saying, can I approve them or deny them to take the exam? So, and then once they take the exam, they automatically go right to the license. They get a letter saying you've passed, pay your, initial license fee, and then they're licensed.
But they won't be licensed in Connecticut. We have to approve the license.
Well, see, like the ones that you just did on page 3. See,
Right.
I'm just letting you know, though, they took the exam, they paid the fee, they're licensed. So you generally don't approve them again once they take the exam.
The question is, if all these people on page 3, we're assuming right now, without going back to our agenda, that those were all qualified the way we're discussing right now.
Yes.
Okay, so John's point is even more important then, so that we don't lose track. We should tell this individual then, Sylvia Tansky, that she's not qualified to take the exam by our standards. Go take it in New York.
Yes, I agree
That's
with
right.
you.
And
All
that's,
right, so
that's what Jane said is perfectly consistent with what we're doing.
right.
We're not
Okay, so
approving
we
them to
don't
take
want to
the
miss that
exam
point
till they
because,
have the experience.
Okay,
so let's rephrase it one more time, Bob.
then I will rephrase it. Motion to deny Sylvia Tonsky due to lack of experience, 4 years experience after her degree.
Is it 3, Bob, because is there a master's involved?
No, there's no master's.
Okay. Okay,
She has
thank you.
she has a master's, but it's from Poland in spatial planning.
Okay, okay. So I will second the motion.
Ryan, there's one more aspect of this, that an individual who has 3 years of experience by our policy has been that we have been granting a year of credit when there is a master's. Agreed, John, Bob,
Yes,
and Rich?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it has to be in residence though. It has to be in residence. You can't take it, you cannot get your master's while you're working.
Correct,
then-
correct.
right.
So,
And is that a master's degree specifically in engineering?
yes, sir, yes.
Yeah.
So again, you have 3 years of experience and you took a master's program after your undergraduate, you get credit for the extra year. In this case, theoretically, let's say, had she had a master's in Poland in civil engineering and it was evaluated as equivalent, then we would have given her the 1 year additional. In this case, it's not applicable. So I think we've got a motion. I've lost track, to be honest with you. We have a motion and a second. It's a Bob Doan moved. Who's second? John to deny, Richard?
Yeah, John Wolf seconded, yes.
All right, Richard seconded to deny due to the lack of 4 years of experience after the undergraduate degree.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to deny, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, that motion carries. So now
Thank
we
you.
move on to Jasmine Torres and Esteban Torres III, reviewed by John DeWolf.
I move approval of both. They're both model engineers.
I'll second.
Thank you, Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
And
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So the next one is reviewed by John DeWolf, Jeffrey Hook. This is a permit class 1 exam, credit parts 1 and 2, and approved class 1 license. So John, explain that one,
Okay,
please.
I wanted to, why isn't the person licensed in California? They took the second exam in California and passed it. So what's confusing is why didn't they get a California license and why isn't this then a class 4?
Is that a case where they didn't have the, it's not a structural orientation, is it?
No. It's not clear, but the second exam.
So
I'm trying
what
to
you're
find
saying,
it, look
yeah,
at
the way it's described is they have passed the fundamentals and the
Civil-
principles, so that,
They
what does
passed
that
the
mean?
PE in civil. And so it's in civil construction. So it seems to me this person would be licensed in California. And this would be then
If I
a
could
class
weigh
4.
in, not to cut you off, John, but in California specifically, they require 2 additional tests, a seismic exam and a surveying exam for civils. And it is possible maybe they didn't pass those tests or something to get licensed there.
Ryan, what the exam you're talking about for structural is for structural engineering. This person has a civil, they took it in civil, so
No,
I think they would be licensed as an ordinary PE.
no. So I mean, I actually happen to know this because I spent a year with the Corps of Engineers in San Francisco and actually looked into licensing in California. And even as a civil, and even as a surveyor, I would have had to take their surveying exam and their seismic exam, even just doing what I do here in Connecticut to be licensed in California. So any civil engineer in California is required to do both of those additional exams. And it's possible they didn't take them or didn't pass them for whatever, and so they weren't licensed as a regular civil engineer there. That may be, I don't know if it is or not. I'm just saying that may be a consideration to think about.
Therefore, it appears that this is an action by our board to approve him as a PE in Connecticut.
Okay, I guess he does
If he's
meet the
passed both
requirement.
parts, and his education is acceptable, right? And he has the experience,
Right,
then he
has the
qualifies.
experience. Yep, so he has 4 years, 10 months. So I guess I'll just move approval.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ryan, for the help.
I'll second that.
Oh,
thank you,
you're
Richard.
welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. See, already, you've jumped the fence, you're committed, you have no way out. Once you get over the fence, we lock the gate.
You will never leave a meeting early with
Yeah.
the land surveyors.
I should have kept my mouth shut.
So all those in favor of the motion to approve Jeffrey Hook for license in Connecticut, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Before I move on to the next group, which I reviewed, Jane, this individual, Mario Colecchia, or if I were pronouncing it correctly as an Italian, it would be Colecchia, perhaps. But anyway, he has multiple licenses listed and not one of them is current. Is there anything in your packet that might indicate that he had one that qualified? The last one from New Jersey expired in April 22.
I can double check that. Our licensing system is currently down,
Okay,
so I can't check, but I can double check that.
it
If
might
we have-
be, if you have the original application, it might have, sometimes one of the sheets gets lost or whatever, but I went through it pretty carefully. I have the whole thing printed here. And I just didn't see it on all of those. But I will pass by that for now. I did review Abshire, Ashley, Catazone, and Collins, Depute, Desai, and Foster. I did note that all but Desai are all but Desai are model law. But only one advanced degree, which is interesting. Oftentimes, Ryan, over the years, we just see more and more model law. The national model now is striving for a BS plus a master's. So BS plus 30, we call it. And it seems that so many of them are pursuing the master's right away. But in this case, I only had out of that, what did I have there? 8 applicants, only one was a master's and one was a doctorate. So with that said, I recommend approval of Abshire, Ashley, Catazone, Collins, Depute, Desai, and Foster. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Now,
Thank you, Richard.
no,
Don't
I'll
be so
second it.
reluctant.
Let's wait for Al to second it. We always-
Al has one main job and it usually doesn't come until the end of the
No,
day.
no. He's more than that. We just don't want to crowd him out.
Right. So,
And Tony, I can confirm that Mario Alexia, he does have a current license in South Dakota till
okay,
November of 2023.
very good. Well, I'll make a separate motion, but, well, let me just modify the motion then. My recommendation is to accept Abshire, Ashley, Catazone, Colecchia, Collins, Depute, Desai, and Foster for Class 4 reciprocity.
So I made the motion and I'll
Yes,
make
sir.
the motion
Thank you.
again.
Richard,
And I'll second the motion for Al again.
all those in favor of the motion to approve Abshire through Foster, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, Rob Lewandowski reviewed the next group of applicants for Class 4 reciprocity. He did a thorough review of everyone. And he had reservations about 2 applicants, one of which was Sadala Galab, which is the first one on our page 4. And he had also similar reservations to Godani. So I would like, my recommendation is to follow Rob's recommendation, which is to table until we can all review that application. And his concern was whether or not the experience was appropriate, number one, and whether or not the foreign degrees were properly evaluated. Sometimes, Ryan, we'll see deficiencies in the evaluation, perhaps a couple of courses in humanities. And that might be offset by 79 credits in engineering versus the 48 required, things like that you see. So oftentimes we'll concede that a couple of courses in humanities is not so important when there was such an overriding or overwhelming concentration on engineering. So that's often a concern. And in this case, I think what Rob is suggesting is that that may be the case, that we don't have enough of one of those criteria. So Rob's recommendation is to table Sadala Galab and Ghanshyam Gadani. Is there a motion to accept his recommendation to table until we can all review?
I'll make that motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you,
Okay, I'll
John.
second.
We're going to table for review. All those in favor of the motion to table the review of Gadani and Galab pending review of the application for education and experience, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Rob's recommendation for the remainder was he recommends approval for all. They all have good experience, model law. Let me just check one thing here. Yeah, he had only one non-model law, and that was an evaluation, very good, on Joshua Hegendorfer. So Rob's recommendation is to approve all but Galab and Godani. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
So moved.
I'll second.
Who second, Al?
Yes.
Thank you, Al. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Gase through Milio on page 5, accepting there from Gadani, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Dane, I know you now have sent those two applications to John and me, but if you would also send them to Bob and Ryan and Richard, we can all take a look, so we'll be prepared for next month. That would be helpful. And then we'll have,
Will do.
Okay.
And the next meeting is in June. No
Well-
meeting in May.
that's right. Well, it'll have to be June. Any objection to that? If it were something else, if it were an exam, you might do it. We could consider, we all look at it and comment, but what might be the pleasure of anybody else? In other words, we could all review it and come back to a discussion for a few minutes, or we wait till June. My inclination is to wait till June.
I think we should be careful.
Yeah. We all look at it and we'll discuss it in June.
Yep.
Is that
Sounds
okay?
good.
All right. I don't think we need a formal motion. We already did. We already made a motion to table it. It happens to be June, and that's what we'll do. All right, the next group was reviewed by Richard Swezak, Metcalf through Bliss on page 5 for class 4 reciprocity.
Okay, I just want to go, Nader got a foreign degree from Lebanon that was deemed equivalent. He also has a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering and a PhD from the University of California. Bright Abdu has a degree out of Ghana, and his degree is in economics and mathematics. But he did get a master's degree from the New York Institute of Technology, where he took 18 courses in engineering. They were all along the line of his discipline that he's working in, which is electrical and computer science. And they deemed it an equivalent undergraduate degree based upon his graduate courses that he took. He took, I think, 18 or 19 courses for a graduate degree. So he was deemed equivalent. It didn't necessarily have the breadth of the spectrum that we normally get as an undergraduate, but he did get quite a bit of additional courses in there. And the last one is John Anderson. He was non-model law because he was disciplined in Pennsylvania because he inadvertently allowed his license to lapse while he was still practicing. With that said, I'll make a motion that we approve the entire group of applications, recognizing that, you know, we have reviewed and deemed them acceptable.
Thank you, Richard.
I'll second it.
I have a problem. I have, was this previous one evaluated by NCEES?
Yeah, yes, the bright ado.
Yes.
Yes, it was a, if, yeah, and they just say it's equivalent, but then when I was looking at their review, I noticed that, but that when they reviewed it, they used his, because a lot of times they don't use the graduate degree in their review. And in this time, they did use the graduate degree, the number of
And they
courses,
said it was equivalent.
and they said it was equivalent.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
That's
Like I said,
exactly the one that
and
we
I just wanted
did
to sort of
earlier.
indicate that it was more, in the line of electrical and computer science courses, but not necessarily all the thermodynamics and, the transportation and the fluid mechanics and all those kind of stuff that we took, but they did deem it equivalent.
Okay, that's all because that's what the one we did at the beginning of this meeting was he had to have it evaluated. He had a similar situation and it came out equivalent. So I'm happy. I'll
Right.
second your motion.
So it's been moved and seconded by Richard and John to approve all the applicants for Class 4 reciprocity from Metcalf through Bliss on page 5. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And Bob Doan reviewed the same request for reciprocity from Boggs through Duta on page 5 and from Ekholm through McCoy on page 6.
Bob, you're turned off. You're
Sorry,
Yeah.
I had to shut down. Whenever I want the lawn to be mowed, all I have to do is go on a Zoom meeting. And then there's a lawnmower running outside my window. And I can't hear. But anyway, so the entire group, I'm going to make a motion to approve, but I'd like to point out that Nancy Duda had a degree from Bangladesh, and she was missing 4 credits in general education, but she has 96 hours in engineering. And so I'm going to make a motion to approve her, but and then Chris Jayavendra has a degree from University of Waterloo, which is Canadian, and missing 7 hours in general education. But again, well exceeds, has 67.5 hours in engineering, for example. And then I had one that was from China and that was deemed equivalent. So I will make a motion to approve the entire group for Class 4 reciprocity.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Al. Again, Ryan, there's an example, a couple of deficiencies in the humanities or something. It doesn't really add up when you have so much more concentration in engineering. So it's been moved and seconded to approve Boggs through Duta on page 5 and Ekholm through McCoy on page 6 for Class 4 reciprocity. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. The last group of applicant for reciprocity reviewed by John DeWolf on page 6 of our regular agenda was Mahaffey through Zhang.
Okay, Mahaffey had a letter of reprimand for providing preliminary engineering prior to receiving his PE license. And he indicated that. I think that's not a problem. Zhang is not a model law foreign degree, but it is equivalent. And so basically, I'm going to move to approve the entire group subject to verifying current licensure for Ryan Paul and Travis Reeser. I couldn't find that they are currently licensed. Travis Reeser is expired last month. And
Yeah.
Ryan Paul's expired in 2022.
So it's been moved by John to approve, subject to a verification for Reeser and Paul. Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Thank you, Richard. So Jane, if you can verify, then you can advise them okay. If not, they have to prove that they're currently licensed.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. So all those in favor of the motion to approve Mahaffey through Zhang, subject to verification for Reeser and Paul, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Ryan, you may notice this, it seems like a significant number of applicants for reciprocity. We've never quite figured it out. Why? Because we have probably the highest registration fee in the country. Right? So.
I can attest to the fact that that seems correct.
But you get a lot for your money. And the next group is a Class 9 license, meaning that they passed the EIT. We have a variety of Yukon, we have one Penn State, Northeastern, so it shows that the engineers are applying on page 6, and then we have more applicants on page 7 for Class 9 license. So a motion to approve the issuance of the EIT license to Alarmy through Herman on page 6 and Hughes through Zhang on page 7.
so
So
moved.
moved. Oh,
Second,
Okay, I got John and Richard, I think.
yes.
yes.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So Bob Doan did a great job reviewing all the applicants for reinstatements. And the policy in this case, Ryan, is that some years ago, a few years ago, the legislature finally changed a requirement that said that, or made it possible for us to approve reinstatements without assessing tremendous fees for anyone who was once licensed in Connecticut and moved to another state and worked continuously in the profession. And in those cases, they don't have to pay the back fees. If someone moved out, became a baker for a while, they'd have to submit a new application. We could evaluate it and then decide if a reinstatement was appropriate. So when a license lapsed, if it's less than 5 years in Connecticut, it says that they shall be reinstated in our statute. If it's more than that, then they have to provide a new application for us to evaluate. If it's a reinstatement, we like to have an acknowledgement as to whether or not the individual signed and sealed any work product. I think by our reinstating, we're recognizing that the individual had the qualifications and therefore the responsibility for what he designed and worked on. Usually it's like a year or so. In some cases, like here today, we see a few years, and the chart that we have here recognizes whether or not they were working elsewhere. So having said all that, Bob, what did you find?
I make a motion to reinstate all 5 licenses. And,
What's the not applicable under Mr.
oh, those are they wanted a list of projects that were signed and sealed, and they did not sign or seal any projects, so the list becomes non-applicable.
But in that case, that's what's a little confusing to me. Let's see. It says continuously licensed in another state, not or not applicable. What?
Oh, I'm sorry.
On Stevens. And then he says signed and sealed, yes. and then he signed them. So
Yeah,
why, I just don't know.
Those two are,
Oh, never mind. I got it now. That's only a recent,
yeah, they were just,
yeah,
didn't renew it last year.
that's right. They're still in Connecticut, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the case where we shall reinstate because they were qualified and he did sign and he told us what he signed. So you're responsible for those projects.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion to approve Desiderio through Ward for reinstatement?
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you while getting the motion. I just want to make sure I understand clearly here, if you don't mind.
Yep.
So Desiderio and Stevens were licensed in Connecticut or are, well, they were up until basically this renewal, this most recent renewal. They didn't renew for whatever reason. They continued to sign and seal plans. They recognized, oh, I didn't renew. And basically they're like, yep, I made a mistake. It wasn't intentional. I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. I want to renew. I'm taking responsibility for what I did. And so the board looks at that favorably is essentially what's going on, or not favorably, but doesn't look at it as it's not like they're being disciplined or anything for signing and sealing without a license. They just.
I think, John, you had one that had discipline because
I had that one. I had that one. In terms of there was a gentleman in Pennsylvania who had allowed his license to lapse in Pennsylvania, and then he realized it. I think it was only less than a year.
Yeah.
But they did fine him $1,000, and he did pay his fine, and so he was disciplined because of the fact that he allowed it. There was some, he either didn't get the email or he didn't sign the check or something, but he thought he paid it, and then all of a sudden he figured out that he did not pay it, and they did discipline him. So,
Ryan, several years ago we discussed this, and first of all, we want them. We want to reinstate them because we want them to have full responsibility for the plans and that they had signed and sealed. And typically when it's a year, it's just a clerical error or what have you. They may work for a big firm and it didn't get renewed or lost in the mail or whatever. But in any event, we want them to take responsibility for the plans that they did sign and seal. And several years ago, I don't know if we made an actual motion to not fine them, but we have them catch up with the license fees as required.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that clarification. I guess so it really comes down to, I mean, it looks like it's clear and it wasn't any malintent, and I think that's the key. Correct. Is that if there was a situation where somebody didn't renew the license but continued on for years or whatever, continuing signing plans, that would be a completely different case. That wouldn't be a reinstatement. That would be we need to look into this kind of thing.
Right, and the others were licensed in another state and working in another state, and they just didn't renew it because they weren't working here.
Yeah, understood. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
And prior to the change in this statute, it was a statute, I guess, right? The some of the fees that people were willing to pay to come back and work in Connecticut were staggering.
Were outrageous,
which bothered John DeWolf tremendously. As right, John? But it was finally recognized. I think it's the right thing. Okay, so it's been moved. Is there a second? Thank you, John.
I'll second.
Okay, Al. All those in favor of the motion to reinstate Desiderio, Perrigan, Pope, Stevens, and Ward, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries, and it completes our regular agenda, which brings us to our supplemental agenda. And I had reviewed a couple in the beginning, Abel Mosen and Arabo. So Jane, if you could verify that that there's a verification of current license for Mr. Abel Mosen. Abdel Mosen, yeah. I don't have one that shows current. It was a good evaluation, but no current license. And on Mr. Arabo, he is a model law engineer, structural bachelor's and master's. So I would approve both, subject to verification of current license for Abdel Mosen. That'd be my recommendation if you would, there's a motion to accept that.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Robert. All those in favor of the motion to approve Abdel Mosen Arabo for Class 4 reciprocity, subject to verification for Abdel Mosen, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Bob Doan reviewed Bailey, Diorentis, Donison, and Dudnick.
With the exception of James Donison, they were all model law engineers. James Donison had a degree from Canada, University of Guelph, Guelph. First time I've heard of that. He had a Bachelor of Science in Water Resource Engineering, and it was deemed equivalent. So with that, I make a motion to approve all four for Class 4 license.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Al. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Conrad, what happened to Mr. Conrad? Conrad. I think I had Conrad in 2 locations. Did it be not? We had Conrad here this morning. Here it is. Got it. Okay. I had reviewed these 4 applicants for Mr. Lewandowski. I think others have also reviewed them. So if there's any discrepancy, let me know. I found them all 4 to be. Was that?
Okay. I reviewed them also, Tony, and they're all
Okay.
acceptable, so I move approval of Govaya through Conrad.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Govaya through Conrad, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. And Richard, you reviewed the next group of Copeland through Novak for Class 4 reciprocity.
Yes, and they were all model law, and I know that Tony likes to keep track of how many have a master's degree, and three out of the 5 had a master's degree for this, group of applications. So I'll make a motion that we accept all 5 applications.
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. John, you reviewed the last group, Thies, Vineyard, Warren, Wilkinson, and Zabek.
Yeah, Wilkinson has a Bachelor of Technology degree with 14 years experience, so he's okay. So I move, and the others are model law, so I move approval of all 5.
Second.
A little bit of discussion on that one, Ryan. We have a couple of different categories. We kind of whittled them down. There's more than we need or use now that we've adopted our policy to have your 4-year education and exam. But there is technology degree. And in the technology degree, which ends up with a bachelor's, for whatever reason, we require more experience in the statute, the enabling statute. So it's just a consistency that we look at that one. But that's really the only variation we have now, I believe, in the education. Our statutes allow waivers and moral exams, et cetera, and that's where we've, ignored them on our policy for more than 20 years. So, but technology, interestingly enough, on the national level, there's a big debate on whether or not you should be licensed as an engineer if you had a technology degree. I personally can't understand that, but it's still a debate that goes on yearly, which I don't understand. But that's why John mentioned the year's experience for that technology degree. So it's moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I think that concludes our
And
regular.
So-
I just cleaned off 6 piles on my desk through all this meeting. I had them all spread over.
Well, that's you can't avoid the paper, unfortunately. Then you need a bunch of sticky backs to keep track of what came in when and who looked at what and who.
Tony, can I
What's
talk
that?
about one more item?
Yes, sir.
Jane had sent an email regarding Charles Ladd, who's an engineer working for a LLC. And they had a question. They had written a letter to Jane regarding how they get licensed, if the firm needs to have a license.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Green Skies Clean Energy LLC. And I would like to suggest that we bring Ryan Burns perhaps into the fold to review this, because if Green Skies Clean Energy was a corporation, I think that Charles Ladd, as the identified engineer employee, is signing the plans, it would be okay. I don't know if Green Skies Clean Energy as an LLC needs to be licensed or not. According to my cheat sheet, it needs the appropriate ownership, but I think my cheat sheet may be outdated.
I agree with you that we should ask Ryan to update that for us. Jane, I don't know if you're aware of what I referred to as our matrix, when you were first asking that question. My personal reaction initially was that because the Green Sky is setting the specifications, right? If you're setting the specifications, regardless of who does it, then you should be licensed because you're offering that service. And as an LLC, they can readily be registered or licensed. So I thought that they should be making the application. Because otherwise the individual could do it on his own, but he's working for a company that's setting the specifications. And in his description of this roundabout back door, why are you presenting it that way? It didn't make sense to me. Yeah, but I agree. I think if you don't have that, what Bob calls the cheat sheet, which Peter Huntsman, I believe, prepared, and it may actually be out of date now relative to any other statutory changes. We have some unique situations, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. We have the ability to have a LLC owned by an entity in another state, and none of those people have to be licensed. Agreed?
Agreed.
As long as people in their employ are licensed. It's a little strange, but that's the way it works. So I think we should have that updated. You're right. So let's put that on the list also. We have two questions. One for may Ryan participate and offer his expertise? That's one. And the second one is updating the matrix or the LL or the corporate matrix.
Yep.
Which would answer that question. Because I don't know if anything was sent back to Mr. Ladd. We had a consensus email train, but I don't know if it was resolved.
And if I can just add, I have not, because I wasn't clear myself
Right.
on what, because with the ownership, because since I'm new at this as well, with the ownership requirement, and he's not an owner,
Right.
so I wasn't sure how he could meet that, part
Right.
of the application.
Is Ryan now assigned to us as an attorney?
I believe temporarily until they get someone else to replace him.
So that was one of the conversations I had with the commissioner, is that I, for one, never really know where we are and who's representing us. Because, and he admitted, we've all had too many, quite a few changes in personnel, right, Jane? I mean,
Yeah.
You for one. So
Yep.
Let me clarify something to stop you there. I believe as part of consumer protection, he's representing consumer protection. That representing us is supposed to be someone from the Attorney General's office, correct?
I agree. Yes, sir.
And
So-
I don't think we have anybody from that area.
Also, Ryan Thompson, Al seems to understand the politics in the legislature a lot better than I do, for sure. So that's helpful to know. So how did you know that Ryan Burns was representing DCP as opposed to us?
Well, that was said somewhere along the line.
Okay.
The last few months it came up. It may have come up based on the hearing that we had. Conversations back and forth for that one you had to sit out.
Right. Yes, sir. So remember, we had Steve Schwain representing DCP and Peter Huntsman represented the board.
Correct.
And right now, you're right. So Ryan Burns represents DCP.
Right.
Okay, and we don't have.
When he responds to questions like the one we posed to him, that you were just asking about the PE and the.
Yeah.
Okay, he's answering for the commission here. Okay, in other words, for consumer protection.
So our statute is directly under the DCP. So when we have a question about the statute, where you're just describing when Peter Huntsman advised us that we didn't have to concern ourselves with the possibility in the statute if we had a policy. So that individual is lacking in our
Right. We don't have that
right now.
We don't have that anymore. No.
Okay, so the question about the LLC versus corporation versus LLC versus PC should be by a board attorney or DCP attorney.
No, it should be by a consumer protection attorney because we're doing work for consumer protection.
Okay. So again, then
Well,
Ryan.
it's okay as far as I'm concerned that he's answering that question. It's just that if we as individuals have problems or something, there's the board, that's supposed to fall under the Attorney General, and we don't have that anymore.
Okay.
We haven't had anything since Huntsman retired.
So it would be appropriate then for Jane to forward our matrix cheat sheet to Ryan to ask him to verify that it's accurate today.
Yes. Yes. Because
But
again, that to me is questions to do how we're approving things for consumer protection.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jane, do you have that sheet that we're referring to?
I do not. I was going to ask if someone could please send it to me.
Bob, do you have it handy that you could send it?
I do.
So if
I
you
do,
would send it
Tony.
to Jane and copy me and anybody
Sure.
else everybody
Okay.
else, I guess.
Copy me, because I used to have one too, but I'm
And
not
you're
sure.
gonna
if I
have it, and you're gonna ask Ryan Burns to review it for accuracy under the current statutes, right?
Yes. Was
Okay,
that
Jay?
directed to me, Tony?
What was that?
Was that question directed to me?
No, I said, I was trying to get it, so
Once you're in there, they
Bob Doan's gonna send Jane this, what we call the matrix or cheat sheet on an outline that Peter Huntsman provided, guiding us on what are the requirements for ownership and possibilities of registration in the state of Connecticut, but it may or may not currently be accurate. And in regard to the LAD case, we wanted to evaluate whether or not that organization of an individual working for an LLC, should the LLC be registered or licensed? In my opinion, it should be, because I believe they're setting the specifications for design, and the individual with the license is confirming that that's accurate. And to me, that's practicing or offering the services of engineering.
Yep.
So I guess those are two things that we can ask our attorney for DCP to review. Whether or not
Yes.
Ryan can or should or may participate in engineering items, which we would certainly hope is I would hope is the case. And then second, to review the corporate options for registration. And then specifically, does the LAD format meet the current criteria?
Is this something I'm doing? I'm just not clear if I'm doing it. I mean,
I'm asking,
fine
no,
with
I'm
it.
suggesting, because I don't have that connection, right? So I think you're our conduit between the board right now and the attorney.
Okay.
So we're asking Bob Doan to send you the latest
Thank you.
form that we have, because he has it readily available today right there in his hand. Send it to you and ask you to forward it to Ryan Burns to ask him to verify that this is accurate by today's statutes and regulations.
Okay, and then we'll ask him to weigh in on the LAD issue as well.
Well,
Oh,
if
Only
he,
as so far as to how that green energy company is set up.
Okay.
I will scan it in and send it around to everybody.
All right, because I just have I received an email earlier that the Connecticut Society of Civil Engineers younger member group is holding a virtual panel regarding credentialing tell-all. And it states, are you sitting for a licensure or certification exam, the PE or the professional exam or the fundamentals exam? Do you have questions? And it says, please join the CESC younger members in a panel of credential holders to discuss the benefits. And I signed up for it, and they had a little box that says, could you provide any insight? And I did tell them that I was a member of the board, and that if they had any questions, I could probably give them some answers that, potentially are what the board is presently doing for these applications, so that if they needed any clarifications, that I would be available.
So what was the forum advertised for?
It was the Connecticut Society of Civil Engineers younger member group virtual panel credentialing tell-all. And they're having a seminar tomorrow online at 12 o'clock. And it says
credentialing tell-all. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yeah, it says, are you sitting for a licensure or certification exam, the PE or FE? Do you have any questions?
Okay.
And then it says, again, for the younger groups, please join, the younger members in a panel of credential holders to discuss the benefits, credentials, study materials, study schedules, practice exam routines, exam day, and more. So I figured that, if they had any technical questions about licensure, that I could sort of give them what the board, presently considers, acceptable and not acceptable.
Okay. Well, it sounds like they're encouraging licensure exam, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that, and again, so maybe to streamline them a little bit, or maybe, answer questions ahead of time so that people don't get the wrong idea what they can and cannot do. Or what they really need to have in order to take the exams and be eligible for licensure.
Okay.
So I'm not doing this as part of a board member, but I did see the invite, and I decided that it might be beneficial for everybody to have somebody like me sort of at least listening in.
Okay. All right. Any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
Wait, I have to ask one more question. How did you do, Ryan?
How'd you do?
How did we do?
You did great. You did fine. It was easy to follow. I understand your process. I mean, I'm as we go through this, I'm certainly going to have questions about the history and the things that you all know because you've been living it for, many years and know all the backstory about why this came to be or whatever. But no, it was very understandable, very easy to follow, and I think I could easily participate and hopefully contribute. So look forward to it.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Welcome
Right,
aboard,
Al.
Ryan.
You're on board, Al.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right.
Thank you, everybody. It was a lot to cover today. It was more than normal. I was even surprised at how many class 4s, and they're not straightforward. You have to look at every one of them and verify consistency, I guess is the best.
Tony, did you forget about Janita?
Well, you normally she makes herself known, but if she's
I
here, she
know.
wants to say something. She didn't send me anything new today, so what do you got, Janita?
I was waiting for you to call on me because I had sent the January 1st, 2023 and the February 28th, 2023 report to Mr. Cullen to be on your agenda. If it wasn't, we can table me, and in June, I will do 2 reports for you. The one for those 2 months and the one for March and April. And that's fine. That works for me.
I think you're going to find that this got tied up to the confusion with the minutes of the previous meeting too, being able to
Yep.
find the documents. So
Nope.
Hopefully we can clarify that a little bit. So in June,
Yep.
everybody will know where to look.
No, because I learned that I can't just send it to an individual. I have to send it to the DCP Commission's
Okay.
box, which I did, and I'm fine because I learned a lot listening today to your discussions and everything else. So I'm good. Thank you for the education. We could table me.
I'm sorry I didn't even look up to the side of the screen here and see.
No.
Yeah,
And it's kind of confusing because Jane Hardy is JH and I'm Janita Hamill and I'm JH too.
Also, now I see another name, Jennifer Rector, and perhaps we should all know who that is.
Hi,
Jennifer.
Sorry.
No, Jennifer, I was going to introduce you, but go ahead.
Yeah, I've been just taking over the board coordinator position ever since actually January 1st, just until they hire someone for the position. So for the past few meetings, it has been myself who has taken the minutes.
Oh, you're the minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hope it wasn't too hard to follow.
No.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, then I look forward to seeing you all in June.
Very good.
To the board members, have a good day. And to Mr. Ryan Thompson, welcome aboard as the new land surveying member. And thank you for your military service, sir.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you.
All right,
See you
bye-bye.
next-
Bye, everyone.